Okay, so let me graph this graph for you, and then we're going to do the Riemann sum. Over here on the left, here's the graph, and if we divide it into 4 intervals, obviously the intervals, one would be at pi, the other one pi over 2. Let's see, the next one would be right here at the y-axis. Okay, so that would divide us up into 4 equal intervals, where it looks like, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it works like each interval, we can say the change in x is going to be pi over 2. Okay. Okay, so now let me take away these vertical lines just for a second, because I don't want to confuse them at all with what we're trying to do here with the drawing of the rectangles. Okay, so for part 1, what we want to do is show that the left-hand endpoint. So in the interval from negative pi to negative pi over 2, the left endpoint obviously would be right here at negative pi. So if I start there and go up until I hit my graph, which will be right there, then I'll draw my rectangle. Okay. The next interval is right here between negative pi over 2 and 0. Well, if I do the left side, it's right here, and if I go up to touch my graph, I'm already there. So that one is just going to be a flat line actually. Okay. From 0 to pi over 2, the left end or the left hand is going to be here at 0. I'm going to go up until I hit the graph, and that's going to be my next rectangle. And then lastly, from pi over 2 to pi, this left one right here, since it's saying the left hand endpoint, and I'm going to go up until I hit my graph, and that's going to find that rectangle. Okay, so those are the 4 rectangles specifically for when I do the left hand endpoint. Okay, so now all I have to do is find the sum real quick. Well, the summation, so let's do this part A, is we're going to do the left hand. So it's always going to be the left hand will be our function value of the left hand one, which we said was negative pi, times the interval length, which is pi over 2. And then it'll be plus, for the next rectangle, be the left hand side. So it will be at pi over 2. I'm sorry, negative pi over 2 times the length, which is pi over 2. Okay, for the third rectangle, the left side is going to be f at 0 times pi over 2. And then for the right one, there'll be f of pi over 2. In the far right rectangle, the left side of it is pi over 2. That's what we used to go up to touch the graph, times pi over 2. So let's go ahead and go in there so that we can find, so f of negative pi. Sine of negative pi plus 1 was 1. Okay, sine of negative pi over 2 plus 1 was 0. So that would be 0 times pi over 2. The next one, at 0 we were up at 1 times pi over 2. And lastly, at pi over 2, the last one, we were up at 2. So if we put all these together, pi over 2 and pi over 2 plus 2 pi over 2, give us a total estimate of 2 pi. Okay, so there's the answer for part A. We're going to do the exact same thing here. I'm going to go over there and let me erase the rectangles, and then we're going to go and do the right hand endpoint rule for all of this. Okay, and for part 2 of the interval from negative pi to negative pi over 2, we're going to choose specifically the right hand side. So we're going to go to there, and we're going to go up until we hit the graph, which obviously we're already touching the graph. So this rectangle is going to be a flat rectangle, just right there on the axis. And if we go to the next one, between negative pi over 2 and 0, obviously the right hand one is 0. I'm going to go up until I hit my graph, and that's going to form that rectangle. Of the next interval, I'm going to go the right one up to hit the graph, form the rectangle, and again up to hit the graph and form the rectangle. So there's my 4 equal rectangles. From there, now let's go plug what information we do know into the equation. I kind of left the equation right there. So the right hand of this first rectangle was negative pi over 2. The interval always stays the same. The next one was 0. The next one was pi over 2, and then was pi. Okay, so plugging the values in and getting this, at negative pi over 2 we were at 0. At the function value at 0 we were up at 1. pi over 2, we were up at 2. And lastly, at pi, we were up at 1. Okay, so now come in adding these together, we'll take out that one. So pi over 2 and pi over 2 plus 2 pi over 2 gives us a grand total again of 2 pi. So it looks like we're getting the same estimate for both of those so far. All right, let's do this one more time. This time we're going to use the midpoints. Okay, the midpoint between negative pi and negative pi over 2 will be right here. We're going to go up till we hit the graph, and then we're going to draw. We change colors. Let me go back to that purple. Go up until I hit my graph, and then we're going to draw our rectangle. So it's going to be like that. Halfway between these two is right here. We're going to go up to the graph. Again, draw our rectangle. Halfway between, go up to the graph, draw my rectangle, and halfway in between, go up to the graph, and draw my rectangle. Okay, so the halfway values for all of this look like we're at pi's over 4's. So we'll do negative 3 pi over 4 for that first value, and then negative pi over 4 for the second one, positive pi over 4, and then positive 3 pi over 4. And then evaluating each of our function at each of those values at 3 pi over 4 and positive 3 pi over 4, negative 3 pi over 4, and plus or minus pi over 4, looks like we're going to get for each of the negative 3 pi over 4, and then for the negative pi over 4, both of those times then pi over 2, we're going to get a decimal point of about 0.46 for each one of those. And then if we look over there, the other two rectangles are the exact same height. So we're going to get the exact same values for both of those. And then they come out to be about 2.68. Okay, so for an overall final answer, looks like 6.283. And if I look at and find the other one, either one, part A and B, were both 2 pi, and 2 pi in decimal form was exactly what this guy came out to be. So it likes for all the answers, we're always getting the 2 pi. It's kind of unique. Good estimate.